Welcome to this evening's webinar. Tonight we have an incredible, two incredible guests with us, Mary McCorvey and also Quin Taylor. And we are going to be talking about thriving post-transplant as well as honoring our donors. Now, yesterday, if you're watching this later, yesterday was National Donor Day, and we thought that this would be so fitting to be able to talk about this topic and to get the perspective from these two incredible women. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Mary. Mary was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when she was 13. And she has spent a lot of her time in education, and she can tell us a little bit about that. Currently, she's an instructional specialist and consultant. And on April 1st, 2019, Mary received a kidney and pancreas transplant. So that was 4 years ago. We're so happy for her. And she has learned, she's got a new perspective on what it means to survive and thrive. So we're going to be talking about that.
Yes.
And then we also have Quin Taylor, and Quin was 20 years old as a sophomore at Iowa State University when she was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease, and she went into kidney failure 7 years later. And I did not know this about you till I started stalking your Instagram profile, but she lost 120 pounds to be able to become eligible for the kidney transplant list, which I just think is so incredible.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then she received her kidney transplant on November 5th, 2015, after spending almost 6 years on dialysis. So, and she now lives a full life and runs her own consulting business, Tailoring Gratitude. And also, I just found out, works for the National Kidney Foundation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, in KFI, Illinois, so the National Kidney Foundation in Illinois.
Perfect. Okay. Well, that's a little bit about both of you, Mary and Quin. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Let's go ahead and get started. So first question that just a little bit curious about is really, what do you think, and either one of you can take this question, what do you think that it really means to you personally to thrive after having a transplant?
It's a great question. I can start. So for me, actually, I think Shelby, when you and I talked a couple of weeks ago, was talking about the fact that every year I have a word, and the word for 2023 is thrive. And so for me, thriving is living fearlessly, living and not just existing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if you've lived with a chronic situation, or if you are living with a chronic situation, you kind of get into the mode of surviving. Like if you choose to, right? You can choose to just survive. You can choose to go with the flow. But when you're able to come out of that, then I know for me personally, living with diabetes from the age of 13 to my 40s, that's a long time. That's a long, long time. You know, having to check blood sugars and restricting and counting carbs and all those things, you know, pricking my fingers, and then having to explain to my friends why I can't eat cake at their birthday parties. It does kind of make you think about, I just have to live. I just have to live. And it's good to live. But coming out of that phase of my life and then shifting to the post-transplant, I think it's a mindset. For me, it was a mindset like, okay, I did survive. Thank God I survived. And now it's time to thrive. So living my life to the fullest as much as I can. Pandemic came and kind of paused it a little bit. But even with that, having the mindset of, okay, you know, I'm going to continue to thrive and not just sit and woe is me or, you know, be scared. So living versus existing to me has been a big thing that shifted my brain from not being okay to just claim myself as a survivor, but also looking at that growth mindset. And I've also coined another phrase, the go beyond mindset, because there's so much more to do. So that's what it's been for me.
I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah, Quin, what
Awesome.
would you love to add?
Following behind that. No, I always say post-transplant, For me, it's been about writing the narrative about the type of life I want to live.
Mhm.
I did it when I was on dialysis. I told everybody I would have dialysis. Dialysis wouldn't have me. And that was the life I lived. I
Yeah.
was able to do more on dialysis than I did before dialysis.
Yes.
And it was all a mindset. And so post-transplant, um, I think people want to write narratives for us.
Mhm.
You know, people always want to tell us what our limitations are, what we have to be careful of. And I think especially through the pandemic, being immunocompromised, you felt just kind of out of sorts. It was like, for me, I was scared to just exist because
Yep.
um, if I had, all I can think is if I get COVID, what's going to happen to
Yeah.
Mhm.
and so now kind of coming out of that woodwork, I write the narrative about the life I want to live. And I can
Mhm.
live in the world and I can exist outside of my home where it feels safe. I just have to take precautions.
Right.
So I think it's being mindful and being in tune to what kind of life do you want to live? What do you want to do? And then once you figure that out, actually taking the steps to live that life. A lot of times we do the living in our head, but we don't
Yes.
do it in real life.
Right.
And so taking what's in your head and actually manifesting it and making it happen and, just living a good, full, blessed life.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. I love that. But Quinn, one of the things that you said that really resonates with me is living it in your head versus actually living it. Because we can get caught up in the routines and I have to do this and the restrictive part of that. But coming out and knowing that I can do some great things and have fun doing those things, I think has been another level of that thriving and you said something that was very interesting and so true. It's not like we weren't living before, but because I kept saying, like, Lord, let's think this through. Unless there were some sick days when I had to stay home or I had to go into the hospital because my sugars were acting up, or on top of having diabetes, I had the chronic kidney disease that came. There were precautions that I had to take, but also just thinking about the fact that I didn't let the diagnosis stop me. I didn't want to be I told one of my friends, I said, when I was 25, around that era, I stopped calling it my diabetes. I started changing my language. I stopped saying, things that would identify me in a way that, that could have been just not what I wanted. And I started it, the fact of the matter was, yes, I was a person who did have type 1 diabetes, but I chose to change my language. And I know that that sounds like, what do you mean? It's just a word. I am a words person. I love words, right? And I do believe that words have power. And, even being in the school district, we use that growth mindset language. And so I do believe that changing that instead of saying I'm a diabetic or my diabetes and attaching that to me started helping me to be able to come out of that, oh, like you said, get out of my head. Had to acknowledge that there would be days when my sugar was acting up, but not attaching that to who I am because beyond that, I was a person before I was diagnosed with diabetes. I was a person before I was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease. And I am a person now. Same with you. So that's so important what you just said.
No, diagnoses are not your identity.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so once you are able to distinguish who you are
Yeah.
outside of your diagnosis,
Right.
um, you don't you don't live as it gives you a chance to live and be your authentic self.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's so important. That's so important.
Yeah,
So
very
yes.
important.
I
Yes.
couldn't agree more, ladies. This is just such a fabulous conversation.
Mhm.
One question that I have for you as we've been talking about our National Donor Day is what are the ways that you have developed to honor your donor?
Mhm. Mm-hmm.
I'll take this one.
Okay.
Things I've been doing to honor my donor. Um, I did reach out to my donor family. I have a deceased donor that gave me my kidney transplant. Unfortunately, we weren't able to connect, but in everything I do, I speak of him because
Mm-hmm.
I was able to find out it was a man. Um, and I always tell the story, and even the story I shared with the donor family was that while they were mourning, I was mourning too. Um, Shelby knows a little bit of my story, but 6 weeks to the day after I was transplanted, my dad died
Mm.
unexpectedly. And me
Yeah.
and my dad were very close. We were best friends. He had been on dialysis since before I was born. And once I started dialysis, we actually dialyzed together.
Mm.
So to be able to have someone that close to you and they can sympathize and empathize and understand what you're going through, it just made us closer. And so while they were mourning their loved one, I was mourning my loved one. And the gift, the selfless gift that my donor gave me, kept me alive in more than one way. It kept me alive because, of course, it gave me a second chance at life.
Right.
But also, when I was in a very dark place, when I was very emotional, sad, I knew I had to keep going and I had to pick myself up and keep moving forward because someone was so selfless to give me the second chance at life that I couldn't let it go.
Yeah.
And so in everything I do, I keep my donor in mind. When I go to doctor's appointments, I speak of my donor because I wouldn't be there with healthy labs, perfect labs, if this person hadn't made such a selfless decision. Every day when I wake up and choose happiness and gratitude and peace, and I choose to live each day as if it's my last, it's because I have this opportunity. So I like to think every day I do something. I always say I'm continuing and building on my donor's legacy,
Yes.
making it bigger than it ever could be because I'm carrying that legacy with me. So
Right.
every day I try to honor them.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is such a fabulous conversation, Quinn, too, because I feel like when your health is in jeopardy and you are diagnosed with a chronic disease, it can feel like so much is out of your control.
Mhm.
And it sounds like from especially what both of you have been saying is that there is so much in your control of how you can choose to view things and how you choose to view like this gift from your donor. I feel like there is this um there's a lot of people will put this pressure of we have to be grateful for getting an organ, even when it's, a little bit challenging because you're like, I didn't ask for this. So
Right.
sometimes we feel like, oh, I just have to be grateful and push aside my true feelings. But I know that's not what either one of you do too.
Right.
I know
Right.
it's like, let's accept all of that whole experience, but from the power of that, choose where I want to focus. And I just think that it's so powerful, the choices that you make to honor your donor, Quinn. So thank you for sharing that so much.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I want to piggyback on what Quinn said. Wow, Quinn, we have a lot in common. My donor was also a male, and I have not been able to meet his family, my donor's family. My donor was 19, and so that's a whole other conversation because I'm like, I'm acting like I'm 19 again. The energy, right? Like, but with a 40 plus year old's wisdom, which kind of
Mhm.
makes it fun, right? And another thing that you said, Quinn, that struck me was the fact that I lost my father. I had my transplant in April, and my father passed in July. And so during the
Um,
time that he was hospitalized, he was in a different state. I'm originally from Mississippi, but I live in Houston, Texas. And so that was a drive that I couldn't make. I couldn't go see him. And when they did let me go see him for a hot minute, I literally had to put on a hazmat suit because they were like, you cannot kiss him, you cannot hug him. I know that's your dad. But the blessing that I have, which is very important to me, is the fact that he knew that his baby girl was getting this gift of life, right? And so in honor of my parents, I named my organs after them. So my kidney is Raymond Kidney.
Mhm.
That is wonderful.
Is Clara Pancreas. So that is one of the things that I do to at least honor my parents. But in terms of honoring my donor, like I said, I haven't been able to meet his family yet. But the fact that he was 19 and he made young man made the decision to be a donor, be a hero. And I find it interesting that I wasn't the only one that he blessed, because one of my friends came to see me, and when I was still in the hospital, and she made the statement that I think I met the person's wife who got the other kidney. So we were on the floor together. And so that speaks volumes of the decision that this young man made, right? So again, just that selfless act of love. You know, when Shelby and I met on via Facebook because I was running, I've never run in my life. I jokingly said, the only thing that I would ever run to is a shoe sale. But I decided to run in Southwest Transplant Alliance, which is an organization here in Texas. They were doing a 5K, and it was during the height of pandemic. And so I did it remotely. I did it here. And so one of the things that I did was I put the names of individuals who had either who had been organ transplant recipients or had donated on the back of my bib. And that's what I posted in the group where Shelby and I met. And so that in and of itself, like, I had to push myself. And in terms of pushing myself, I was like, okay, even on that highest hill that I just was like, I can't do this anymore. I thought of him. I thought
Mhm.
of the life that he could be living, you know, and I said, how dare I say I can't run this last half mile? Because if it had been 4 years ago, it would have been a different circumstance, because I would have had insulin pumps and sugar and all those kinds of things to be concerned about. But the fact that I could run, and the only thing that I had to deal with at the end of it was hurt feet and not a low blood sugar or, you know, my blood pressure, and all those things. It just made it different. And so whenever there is a 5K that deals with transplant, I know we're talking about the honoring, but even honoring him with the things that I don't know what kind of life he lived, but I would like to imagine him being active, like being an athlete or just wanting to get out and live a lovely life. And so, you know, doing those kinds of things. Another thing that I've done recently is we have a home. It's called Nora's Home here in Houston. And
Yes.
so it's a location where individuals who are either pre-transplant or post-transplant, they're coming in, they can stay here, because a lot of people, you know, Houston has the Methodist sense, I'm sorry, the God help me, the hospital center here, right? And it's very big. And so I started volunteering there. So yes, not MD Anderson, but it's in the location. It's the medical center. That's what it is. It's the medical center
Yeah.
where they have everything there. And so being able to go and talk with other transplants. So like you said, you don't like to tell it, but I'm like, hey, I understand. I had a transplant. And so there's a different connection, you know, when you just get an opportunity to go in and play games with them or talk to them, have them talk to each other. A lot of times they're just like, I'm just tired,
Mhm.
you know, and I get that. There's a difference in being COVID tired, transplant tired, all of those things, right? But being able to go in and in my brain give them a little bit of joy. Let's just play some games. I learned how to play Mexican Train just because they want that interaction. And I think it makes a difference when they can connect with someone, like you said earlier, Quinn, with someone who's been there or is there with them. So I am enjoying thriving and um honoring my donor in that way and just being bold. Yes, call it soul tired. And oh my God, yes, Jen. I call it soul tired and I strive for soul filling. Absolutely. I love that.
Mhm.
I love that. So yes.
Ugh, you ladies, you're so amazing. Okay. And yeah, I have to also say that my donor was also a male.
Yes.
So yeah, and I believe he was in his late 20s. So,
Mhm.
and I also have not been, I've reached out, but have not been able to connect with my donor
Yeah.
family. But um like you said, Mary, we connected over Facebook because I was starting to train for triathlons at that
Yeah.
same time. And I was just so excited to see somebody else who was thinking about their donor while they
Mhm.
were exercising and using that as an opportunity um, to get healthy, but also use the gift in the
Right.
health that we now enjoy. Because it's
Yeah.
absolutely miraculous that we're able to do the
It
things we are
is.
now.
It
Yes.
is. And again, without the fear, without there were because I had when I was isn't that beautiful? I can say I used to have diabetes, right? But
Mhm.
there was a
Mm.
time when I used to have medical kits wherever I went.
Yeah.
In my office, in my car, at my family's house, wherever I went, just because, or whenever I would travel, the very first thing that I would have to pack would be what? My meds, my medical devices. And when I was packing my bag to get ready to go to the hospital, I was telling my best friend, I said, I burst out into tears because I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to have to take insulin to the hospital with me. I'm not. And even that was just like, whoa, I've never been able to travel as an adult or really in my life without having something that had insulin related to it, or my big container of medications for all of the kidney things, or, just being aware of those things. And so, whenever I get the opportunity, like I said, my transplant birthday was April 1st. And I told my team, I said, I don't care how many years it is, I'm always going to honor this day. And I think any transplant recipient would, because it's a new lease on life.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
When you
funny.
think about, yeah.
Keep
Mhm.
going. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
No, I'm
interrupt.
sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just what I was going to ask is, are there specific days or anniversaries that are more important to you?
April 1st.
Yeah. My transplant, I always call it my kidneyversary.
Yeah.
My
Mhm.
kidneyversary is November 5th of 2015. And
Mhm.
so I remember my first year transplanted. I threw a huge party
Yeah.
because of the circumstances that had happened, during right after transplantation, my dad passing away.
Mhm.
And I felt a little guilty because I felt like I couldn't celebrate it the way I wanted to
Yeah.
Yes.
because my emotions were like ping pong all over the place.
Right.
And so, yeah, I threw a party and invited the people who were the best support for me during that time.
Yeah.
And every year I do something, whether it's going out to dinner,
Yes.
a little party with friends, but something to recognize the miracle that happened for me that day.
Yeah.
Um, I always remember the last day I did dialysis because it was the day
Mhm.
before I got transplanted. And you couldn't have told me when I walked out the dialysis center that day that
You will
I
return.
wouldn't be returning.
Yeah.
Well, I returned, but that I would only return as a transplant recipient and not
Yeah.
someone who needed dialysis anymore. So, yeah,
Right.
November 4th was my last treatment. Um, and interestingly enough, um, I take time to reflect January 18th of 2010. That was the day I started dialysis.
Mm-hmm.
And I reflect on that day because my life changed in a way that I never anticipated. I had been diagnosed with chronic kidney disease, and mine is hereditary. I have FSGS, focal segmental glomerulosclerosis.
Mhm.
And so, I'll never forget the first day I walked in a dialysis center. It was like, I've been in here many times with my dad, but no one prepares you to be the patient. And like, I just dissolved in tears.
Yeah.
Like, I can't
Yeah.
believe this is happening.
Right.
But yeah, it turned, like I said, it kind of changed my life. Well, it did change my life completely, but it
Yeah.
gave me a life that I wouldn't have had had I been in control of it. But it's so
Yeah.
much better because of it. And people look at me like, what do you mean about life is better? Like all of the things you go through. I think a lot of times we feel like we aren't supposed to have hard battles.
Mhm.
Like we're supposed to be, you know, sometimes it's like kind of a privilege, like, oh, bad things aren't going to happen to me. And Shelby knows this. I'm a woman of faith, and in the Bible again, it says we're guaranteed so many days of trouble or hard days, and so nobody's exempt from going through things. So this was just what I had to go through to become the person I am and get to this place in life. And so yeah, it did make me better, and yeah, it was good because it made me good. So yeah, that was totally off track of the question, but
No, that was perfect for the question.
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
I think that it is easy to be like, yes, the day that I got my transplant, like that's a really key day. But I think that it's interesting to hear what other days people remember and which ones stick out to them. So
I'll add this, and it's very interesting. I actually acknowledged the entire week leading up to my transplant
mm,
because on my phone I have Miracle Week that leads up because
of course you do.
every single day, yes, there was something. I was talking to my boss about this yesterday. I was like, I'm gonna do a webinar and I'm so excited. And there were just things, I think April 1st, definitely, but another day that I celebrate is the day that I actually got the call,
Mm.
um, which was on a Saturday. And I always say, I was just going to the park. One of my nieces and I had gone to the park for an Auntie Niece Day, and we were going to celebrate Vincent Van Gogh's birthday because they were doing a celebration in the park. And I get this call, and I'm like, this is a spam. I don't know this number. And I wasn't going to answer it. And I heard that voice, and I'm a woman of faith as well. And I was like, I'm not going to answer this phone. And then I know it was the voice of God saying, answer that phone, because that was someone from Methodist telling me, hey, and he went down and he said, we have a possible match. And I'm thinking, wow, all the things that led up to that day, and then getting the call. And guys, I had only been on the list 2 days. So I was listed on a Thursday. I got called on Saturday and had the transplant on that Sunday. No, that Monday, April 1st. So all of those things leading up to that day, whenever that week comes, I get super excited. Like it's like a real birthday to me, and I'm like, okay, it's a countdown, it's a countdown, it's a countdown. But you're absolutely right. All of the days aren't great feeling days, but you have to commit to doing the work. You have to commit to continuing to thrive. And I think you also have to commit to remembering the sacrifice. Like, person decided that they were going to check on their driver's license or whatever that they wanted to donate. So how dare I say I'm not going to do XYZ, just because of whatever reason. So you're absolutely right. There are so many things that we can celebrate, but I'm grateful for the fact that we get to celebrate those things.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this conversation so much. You ladies just bring so much light to this topic.
Mhm.
Um, I think kind of my final question is like, do you feel like you have a responsibility to your donor?
Mhm.
Mhm.
You do.
Yeah.
Do you want to take that one, Quinn?
Sure. Do I have a responsibility to my donor? Do I feel I have a responsibility
You
to
feel
my
like
donor?
it?
I absolutely do. This person made such a selfless decision, not knowing that I would be the person to glean from it.
Mhm.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, I feel it would just be an injustice to not honor that selflessness. Um, it could have went to anybody, but it came
Yes.
to me.
Yes.
And so I feel it's so important to remember that. You said something that every day isn't great. Every day isn't great, and I will never tell anybody this false story like every day is wonderful. No, it's really not.
Mhm.
But there's always something great in every day. It's always
Yeah.
something to be grateful for in every day. And so even when I'm having the worst day, I can say, somebody thought enough of people to
Mhm.
say, I'm going to give my organs when I pass away.
Yeah.
And, sometimes people say, I had people come forward and say, oh, I want to be a donor. I want to be a donor. And then when they get all of the information sometimes about what being a donor can look like, a living donor, should I be
Yeah.
specific. They were like, I have to think about that, you know, and I
Yeah.
understand it completely. It's never any pressure. I get that. But for someone to have such a concise decision that I'm going to help people and keep, you know, help people even in my passing, I feel this responsibility to live the best life I can. People don't like to talk about this, but I don't know how many wonderful years this kidney is going to give me. It's been a blessed and
Yeah.
full 7.5 years.
Mhm.
But I have no control over that. So while I have it, I feel this responsibility to make sure I live the fullest life that I can.
Mhm.
Um, Even if I have to go back to dialysis, I'll still strive to live a full life. But while I have this gift that gives me a little more flexibility to live a great life, I'm going to live this life as full as I can
Yeah.
because this is what this person wanted for someone when they signed filled out the when they decided to be an organ donor, put it that way.
Yes. Yes.
And so, yes, I feel that responsibility to make sure I take care of myself and not just physically, but mentally. A lot of times we don't talk about the mental strain that comes with being a transplant patient. Sometimes it's beyond your control. It's medications that just have you up, down, to the side, or things like
Yes.
that.
Crying.
Um, I, for me,
Yes.
I take prednisone as part of my treatment.
Me
And
too.
so it gets, you know, but taking care of myself mentally, doing work to keep myself in a great place physically and mentally, all of these things are important, or it's they're non-negotiable in my life
Yeah.
because for me I just want to be as great of a person as I can and as the person who decided to be my donor.
Mhm.
So that's what I strive to do every day. So yes, I
Yeah.
do feel that responsibility.
Oh, I love it.
Right.
This has
Yeah.
been
So good.
such an incredible, sorry,
Mhm.
excuse me. Such an incredible webinar. Your lights just shine so brightly. And can you tell us really quick if there's anywhere that we can find you after the webinar? I know that we've got some posts on our forum. So if you guys want to talk to Mary or Quinn on the forum, you can find them there. Is there any
Mhm.
other places that they can find you?
So right now I'm taking a hiatus from Facebook. Normally I am on Facebook, but I'm on Transplant Life, and I'm also on Twitter, Darla Mac One, and I'm on Instagram as well. And so I do post things specifically when I am a part of when I do things with Nora's Home or when I'm working out. My trainer likes to post videos of me trying to work out, which
Love
again
it.
is a celebration because that is something that I never ever thought that I would do is to I've always been a worker outer, but the dedication that goes along with that now is making me just want to do great things. And whenever I do run a 5K, I try to post those pictures to celebrate that. So Instagram, Facebook when I get back on it, and Transplant Life, and as well as Twitter.
Perfect. Thank you. And Quinn, where can we find you? What's the best for us?
I apologize for my runny nose. It's allergy season and it's
It's
really
okay.
No apologies necessary.
but you can find me on Facebook at Tailoring Gratitude. You can find me on Instagram at Tailoring Gratitude. Tailoring is spelled TAYLORING space gratitude. You can find me on LinkedIn under Quin Taylor. Yeah. And if
Oh yes,
all
ma'am.
else fails, you can on my website, www.tailoringgratitude.com. And if all else fails, just put my name, Quin Taylor, in Google and something will pop up and you'll be able to find me.
Perfect.
Yes, love
Thank
it,
you
love it,
so
love it.
much. Everybody needs a little bit more Mary and Quinn in their life, I feel like. I am blessed to have both of you in my life.
Yes, and
Right?
the feeling is mutual.
Yes.
Absolutely. Shelby is
Mhm.
such a gem. We love her so much.
Yes, absolutely,
All
absolutely.
right. Well, have an incredible evening and thank you so much for watching the webinar, everyone. It was great having you here. We'll see you
Yes.
next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.